Logan wore a patch to school that he made himself, a tribute to the father he never knew. Instead of honor, he found humiliation. But when word reached the Iron Guardians, 5 bikers showed up at the school gates the very next morning. They went to show that every little gesture makes someone deserve a patch. Logan's world was small, and he'd learned to be okay with that. Most days after school, he'd walk the 4 blocks home alone, backpack slung over one shoulder, sneakers scuffing against cracked sidewalks. His mom worked double shifts at the diner downtown, so the apartment was usually empty when he got there. He'd pour himself a bowl of cereal, sit at the kitchen table, and draw. Motorcycles, mostly. He wasn't great at it, but he liked the way the lines came together, the curves of the gas tank, the spokes of the wheels. His grandmother lived 2 streets over. She was the one who told him about his dad. "Your father," she'd say, her voice soft and distant, "was a rider, not just a guy on a bike, a real rider. He had brothers, a family on the road." Logan would sit on her worn couch, knees pulled to his chest, listening like it was the first time every time. They called themselves the Iron Guardians. Your daddy never missed a Sunday ride. Rain or shine, he was out there. She kept a photo on the mantle. His dad, young and smiling, standing next to a chrome-heavy motorcycle, leather vest open over a faded t-shirt. His arm was slung around another man's shoulder, both of them grinning like they'd just conquered the world. Logan stared at that photo a lot. One Saturday, he asked his mom about it. She was folding laundry, her back to him. "Your grandma tells you too much," she muttered. "But he was in a club, right?" Her hands paused. "He was. And then he wasn't here anymore." That was all she ever said. So Logan filled in the gaps himself. He imagined his dad riding through mountain passes, wind whipping his hair, engine roaring beneath him. He imagined him laughing with his crew at some roadside diner, boots kicked up, stories swapped over cold coffee. He imagined a man who belonged somewhere. Logan wanted that too. The idea came to him one afternoon while he was sketching in his notebook. If he couldn't ride with his dad, maybe he could wear what his dad wore. He found an old piece of denim in his closet, cut it into a rough square, and traced the symbol from the photo with a Sharpie. A skull, 2 crossed wrenches beneath it. Above that, in careful block letters, he wrote, "Iron Guardians, Prospect." He didn't know what prospect really meant, but it sounded official. It sounded like it mattered. He stitched it onto his backpack with thread he found in his mom's sewing kit. It wasn't perfect. The edges were uneven, the lines a little shaky. But when he looked at it, something shifted in his chest. It wasn't much, just a patch on a backpack, but it felt like proof that his dad had been real, that he'd mattered. He wore it to school on Monday. The reaction wasn't what he expected. By second period, a kid in the hallway pointed and snickered. "Nice arts and crafts project, Logan." By lunch, someone had scribbled over part of the patch with a red marker. Logan tried to rub it off in the bathroom, but it just smeared. Mrs. Callahan, his homeroom teacher, pulled him aside after 4th period. She didn't yell. She just looked uncomfortable. "Logan, honey, that symbol on your bag. Do you know what it represents?" "My dad," he said quietly. Her expression softened, but she shook her head. "I'm going to need you to come with me to the office." The principal, Mr. Davison, sat behind his desk with his arms crossed. Logan's backpack sat between them like evidence. "This is gang material, Logan." "It's not a gang," Logan said, voice cracking. "It's a motorcycle club. My dad. I don't care what your dad was involved in." Mr. Davison's tone was final. "You can't bring this to school. I'm confiscating it until your mother picks it up." Logan sat outside the office for the rest of the day, staring at his hands. No one came to pick him up. His mom was at work. He walked home alone, backpack gone, eyes burning with tears he refused to let fall. The apartment was dark when he got home. Logan dropped his keys on the counter and stood in the kitchen, staring at nothing. The fluorescent light above the stove buzzed softly. He thought about calling his grandmother, but what would he even say? That he'd embarrassed himself? That he'd tried to honor his dad and failed? He walked to his room and pulled out the photo he kept tucked in his desk drawer, a copy of the one from his grandmother's mantle. His dad looked so young, confident, like he knew exactly who he was. Logan traced the outline of the vest with his finger. The Iron Guardian's patch sat right over his dad's heart, worn and faded but still there, still real. "I tried," Logan whispered to the photo. "I tried to make you proud." The silence of the apartment pressed in around him. Somewhere down the hall, a neighbor's TV murmured through the walls. Logan set the photo back in the drawer and lay down on his bed, still fully dressed, staring at the ceiling until exhaustion finally pulled him under. He didn't know yet, but someone had noticed. Cody, the part-time janitor who also worked lunch duty, had seen the whole thing. And that night, he made a phone call. Cody wiped down the last cafeteria table, the fluorescent lights humming above him. The school was empty now, quiet in that heavy way buildings get after everyone leaves. He kept thinking about the kid, Logan, the one sitting outside the principal's office with his head down, looking like the world had folded in on him. And that patch. Cody had seen it up close when he collected lunch trays. Hand-drawn, stitched crooked, but unmistakable. The skull, the wrenches, the words, Iron Guardians. He hadn't heard that name in years. Back in his 20s, Cody used to hang around the edges of the motorcycle scene. Never patched in, he didn't have the stomach for that kind of commitment, but he knew people. He'd been to enough rallies, enough clubhouses, enough late-night poker games to recognize the real thing when he saw it. And that patch was real. Or at least it was trying to be. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through old contacts. Most of them were dead numbers now. But one name still had a green dot next to it. Ricky Clutch Barlow. Cody hesitated, then hit call. It rang 4 times before a gravel voice answered. "Yeah, Clutch. It's Cody. Cody Brennan." A pause. "Brennan? Damn, man. Thought you fell off the map. Just been working. Listen, you still ride with the Guardians. Every Sunday. Why?" Cody leaned against the wall, choosing his words carefully. "There's a kid, 11, maybe 12, showed up at the school where I work wearing a homemade Guardian patch. Called himself a prospect." Clutch let out a low whistle. "That's bold. Or stupid. Neither. He's just a kid who misses his dad." Silence on the other end. Then, "His dad ride with us?" "I think so." The patch looked legit. Not some internet knockoff. "What's the kid's name?" "Logan." Another pause. Longer this time. "Logan," Clutch repeated slowly. "Last name? I don't know, but he's about 11. His dad's been gone a long time." Clutch exhaled hard. "I'll make some calls." The line went dead. 2 hours later, Clutch walked into the Iron Guardians clubhouse, a low brick building on the edge of town with bikes parked out front like soldiers at attention. Inside, the air smelled like motor oil, cigarettes, and decades of brotherhood. Photos lined the walls, rides, rallies, faces frozen in time. Garrett, the road captain, was sitting at the bar nursing a beer. He looked up when Clutch came in. "We got a situation," Clutch said. Garrett set his beer down. "Talk. There's a kid wearing our patch. Homemade. Says his dad rode with us." Garrett's jaw tightened. "Someone's kid is claiming us?" "His name's Logan." The room went still. From the back corner, an older man named Miller stood up. His vest was covered in patches. Years of road and loyalty stitched into leather. His face had gone pale. "Logan." Miller's voice cracked. "How old?" 11. Miller crossed the room in 3 strides. "Mark's kid. Mark Holloway's boy." Garrett's eyes widened. "Mark had a son?" "He did." Miller's voice dropped, like the words were dragging something up from deep inside him. "Mark died in a crash years ago. His girl was pregnant. We tried to stay in touch, but she didn't want anything to do with us after he was gone. Said it hurt too much." The clubhouse was silent except for the low hum of the jukebox in the corner. Garrett stood. "Where's the kid now?" "School took his patch. Suspended him for gang activity." Garrett's expression darkened. "They what?" Clutch nodded. "Principal confiscated it. Kid got humiliated in front of everyone." Miller slammed his fist on the bar. "Mark's son is out there getting disrespected. And we didn't even know he existed?" Garrett looked around the room. 8 members were present. Every single one of them was watching him. "We ride tomorrow," Garrett said. "First thing. We go to that school, and we get this sorted." Miller pulled a worn photo from his wallet. It was creased, faded, but clear enough. Mark Holloway, younger, alive, standing between Garrett and Miller with his arm around both of them. His smile was wide, fearless. "That's his boy," Miller said quietly. "That's Mark's legacy." Garrett nodded once. "Then we make sure he knows it." The vote was unanimous. That night, Miller couldn't sleep. He sat on the back porch of his house, a beer warming in his hand, staring at the stars. Mark's face kept flashing through his mind. Not the way he looked in the photos, but the way he'd been that last Sunday ride. Laughing. Alive. Invincible. Miller had been the one to get the call about the crash. He'd been the one who had to tell the club that Mark wasn't coming back. He'd stood at the funeral, watching Mark's girl, barely 20 years old, 6 months pregnant, sobbing into her hands, and he'd wanted to say something. Anything. But the words wouldn't come. And then she'd shut them all out. Changed her number. Moved apartments. The club had respected her grief, her space. But it had gutted them. Losing Mark was one thing. Losing his son too felt like a second death. Miller pulled out his phone and looked at the photo Garrett had sent earlier, the one of Mark they dug up from the archives. Mark's arm around Miller's shoulders, both of them younger, stronger, certain they'd ride together forever. "We got him, brother," Miller said quietly to the photo. "We got your boy, and we're not letting him go." He finished his beer and went inside. Tomorrow they'd ride to that school. Tomorrow they'd make things right. The sound hit the school before the bikes did. It started as a low rumble in the distance, like distant thunder rolling across flat land. Parents dropping off their kids paused mid-sentence. A crossing guard turned her head toward the road. Inside the building, Mrs. Callahan looked up from her desk, frowning. Then they appeared. 5 motorcycles riding in tight formation, chrome gleaming under the morning sun. They moved with precision, engines synchronized, a wall of sound and steel. The lead rider signaled, and they turned into the school parking lot as one, rolling past the drop-off zone and coming to a stop directly in front of the main entrance. The engines cut. Silence dropped like a curtain. Every eye in the schoolyard was on them. The riders dismounted slowly. They weren't young men trying to prove something. These were veterans. Leather vests worn soft with age, patches earned over decades. Garrett led the way, his boots heavy on the pavement. Miller was beside him, arms crossed, face unreadable. Clutch, along with 2 others, a broad-shouldered man named Hound and a wiry guy called Spider, flanked them. Mr. Davison came rushing out of the building, his tie crooked, face already flushed. "Excuse me, you can't park here. This is school property." Garrett stopped 3 feet from him and removed his sunglasses. His voice was calm, almost polite. "We're here to see a student." "Absolutely not. I'm calling the police." "Go ahead." Garrett didn't move. "We'll wait." Miller stepped forward. "The student's name is Logan. Logan Holloway." Davison's mouth opened, then closed. His eyes darted to the vests, the patches, the iron discipline in the way these men stood. "I don't know if—" "We're not here to cause trouble," Garrett interrupted. "We're here to talk to the boy. 5 minutes. That's all we're asking." Behind them, students pressed against classroom windows. Phones were out, recording. A few parents had stopped their cars, watching from a distance. Davison swallowed. "I'll get him." Logan was in English class when the intercom crackled to life. "Logan Holloway, please report to the main office immediately." His stomach dropped. He thought about his mom. Had something happened? Was she okay? He walked down the empty hallway, sneakers squeaking on linoleum, dread building with every step. When he pushed through the front doors, he froze. 5 men stood in the parking lot. Behind them, 5 motorcycles sat like monuments. All of them were looking at him. Logan's legs felt like concrete. His hands started trembling. He didn't know whether to run or stay still. Garrett took a step forward, and Logan flinched. "Easy, son." Garrett's voice was low, steady. "We're not here to scare you." Logan's mouth was dry. "I wasn't trying to cause trouble." We know. Miller moved beside Garrett, and his expression softened in a way that caught Logan off guard. We know what you did, and we know why. Garrett crouched down, bringing himself to Logan's eye level. Slowly, carefully, he reached into his vest and pulled out a photograph. It was old, the edges worn from being carried too long. He held it out. Logan's breath caught in his chest. It was his dad. Not the photo from his grandmother's mantel. A different one. His dad was younger here, maybe mid-20s, standing between two other men. One of them was Miller. The other was Garrett. All three had their arms around each other, laughing like they just survived something incredible. His dad's vest hung open, the Iron Guardian's patch visible over his heart. Logan's vision blurred. Your old man, Garrett said quietly, was one of us, a brother. He rode with this club for 6 years before he passed. And when he died, it tore us apart. Miller's voice was thick. We didn't know about you, kid. Your mom. She didn't want us around. And we respected that. But we never forgot Mark. Logan's voice cracked. You knew him? Knew him? Miller let out a rough laugh. He saved my life once. Pulled me out of a ditch after I wrecked my bike going too fast on a mountain pass. Sat with me in the hospital for 3 days straight. Garrett tucked the photo back into his vest. That patch you made, the one they took from you, that wasn't disrespectful, Logan. That was honor. You were honoring your father. Logan wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. They said it was gang stuff. Garrett stood, his jaw tight. He turned toward Mr. Davison, who was still standing in the doorway, pale as a sheet. We're not a gang, Garrett said, his voice carrying across the lot. We're a brotherhood, and this boy's father died serving that brotherhood. He has every right to wear that patch. Davison said nothing. Garrett looked back at Logan. You free this Saturday? Logan blinked. Yeah, I guess so. Good. Garrett's expression softened into something close to a smile. Because we'd like you to come by the clubhouse. There's some people who want to meet you, and some things we want to show you. Miller knelt down and put a hand on Logan's shoulder. Your dad would have been proud of you, kid. Real proud. Logan couldn't speak. He just nodded, tears streaming down his face. The 5 men turned and walked back to their bikes. Engines roared to life one by one. And as they rode out of the parking lot in perfect formation, Logan stood there, watching them disappear down the road. He stood there long after they'd gone, the rumble of engines still echoing in his chest. The emptiness he'd carried for 11 years felt lighter somehow. Saturday came slower than Logan thought possible. He barely slept Friday night, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in his head. The bikes, the men, the photograph. His mom had asked him twice if he was feeling okay. He just nodded, not sure how to explain what had happened. Not sure she'd want to hear it. But Saturday morning, when Garrett's truck pulled up outside their apartment, she was the one who walked him to the door. She looked at Garrett through the window for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she turned to Logan. Your grandmother told me what happened at school, she said quietly. I didn't know they'd come looking for you. Logan shifted his weight. Did I mess things up? She was quiet for a beat. Then she shook her head. No, I was mad at them once. For a long time. But you're not me, Logan. And maybe it's time. She opened the door. Garrett stood on the steps, hands in his pockets, looking more nervous than Logan had ever seen a grown man look. Ma'am, he said, I just want you to know. I know who you are, she interrupted. Her voice wasn't cold, just careful. Mark talked about you. About all of you. Garrett's shoulders dropped a fraction. We loved him. And we're sorry we weren't there for you after. She looked at Logan, then back at Garrett. Take care of my son. With everything we have, Garrett promised. The drive to the clubhouse took a few minutes. Logan sat in the passenger seat, watching the landscape shift from apartment complexes to industrial lots to open stretches of road. Garrett didn't say much, just kept one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the window frame. You nervous? Garrett finally asked. Logan nodded. That's okay. First time walking into a clubhouse is always intense. But you're Mark's kid. That means you're walking in as family, not a stranger. Logan glanced over. Did you really know my dad that well? Garrett's jaw tightened, but his expression softened. Mark was my best friend. We patched in the same year. Rode side by side for 6 years straight. Losing him, Garrett trailed off, then cleared his throat. When he died, it broke something in all of us. We tried to stay close to your mom, but she needed distance. We understood. Grief does that. She never talks about him, Logan said quietly. Maybe she will now. Garrett pulled into the gravel lot. Maybe this is what she needed too, to see that Mark's memory is still alive. That he mattered. Logan looked out at the clubhouse. The bikes lined up like soldiers, the weathered sign above the door. His heart hammered in his chest. Ready? Garrett asked. Logan took a breath. Yeah, I'm ready. The clubhouse sat on a gravel lot surrounded by chain-link fence, worn but sturdy, like it had weathered decades and refused to fall. Logan stepped out of the truck and stared. Bikes lined the front like sentries. The building itself was low and brick, with a hand-painted sign above the door. Iron Guardians MCEST, 1987. Inside, it smelled like leather, oil, and old wood. The walls were covered in photographs, hundreds of them. Rides through deserts and mountains. Rallies with hundreds of bikes. Faces young and old, some Logan recognized from the school, others he didn't. And then he saw it. An entire section of the wall dedicated to riders who'd passed. In the center, larger than the others, was a framed photo of his dad. Beneath it, a small plaque, Mark Ironside Holloway brother, rider, guardian. Gone but never forgotten. Logan's throat tightened. Miller appeared beside him, hands in his pockets. We put that up the week after he died. Every year on his birthday we ride to his grave. Every single year. Logan's voice was barely a whisper. You never forgot him. Never. Garrett called from across the room. Logan, come here. The other members had gathered near a pool table that had been cleared off. Sitting in the center was a vest. Small, black leather, sized perfectly for a kid. Logan approached slowly, almost afraid to touch it. Garrett picked it up and held it out. We had this made for you. Took us 3 days. Logan reached out, fingers brushing the leather. It was soft, real, nothing like the denim scrap he'd used. And on the back, stitched in bold white thread, was a single word. Legacy. Beneath it, the Iron Guardians patch. Official. Authentic. You're not a prospect, Miller said. You're not a member. You're something else. You're the son of a brother. And that means you carry his place in this family. Logan's eyes burned. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Garrett said. Just wear it with pride. Logan slipped the vest on. Fit perfectly. Hound, the broad-shouldered rider, grinned. Looks good on you, kid. Spider nodded. Your old man would have lost his mind seeing this. That afternoon they rode. Logan sat on the back of Garrett's bike, arms wrapped tight around his waist, vest snug against his chest. The rumble of the engine vibrated through his whole body. The wind roared in his ears. The world blurred past him, trees, signs, people. All of it racing by in streaks of color. Logan's grin stretched so wide his cheeks hurt. This was what his dad had felt. They rode in formation through town, then out onto the highway, engine synchronized, a single unit. People on the sidewalks turned to watch. A few waved. Logan waved back, grinning so hard his face hurt. They pulled into the cemetery just as the sun started to dip low. The bikes came to a stop near a section shaded by old oak trees. Garrett killed the engine, and the silence that followed felt sacred. Logan climbed off, legs shaky, heart pounding. Miller led the way. The headstone was simple. Mark Holloway, beloved son, brother, rider. One by one, the members approached. Garrett placed a hand on the stone and bowed his head. Miller knelt and whispered something Logan couldn't hear. Hound left a small Iron Guardian's keychain at the base. Spider just stood there, silent, eyes closed. Then they stepped back. Garrett looked at Logan. Your turn. Logan walked forward slowly. He knelt in the grass, his new vest creaking slightly, and pressed his hand against the cold stone. His voice broke. I found them, Dad. I found your brothers. Tears streamed down his face, but he didn't care. I know you now. I know who you were. And I'm not alone anymore. Behind him, Miller wiped his eyes. Garrett turned away, jaw clenched. Logan stayed there for a long time, the weight of the vest on his shoulders feeling less like a burden and more like a promise. When he finally stood, the sun had set. The clubhouse lights glowed faint in the distance. Garrett put a hand on his shoulder. Ready to head back? Logan looked at the headstone one more time. Then he nodded. Yeah, let's go home. And as they rode back through the darkening sky, engines humming in unison, Logan realized something. The patch on his back wasn't just fabric and thread. It was a promise, a connection that death hadn't broken, and no one would ever take that away from him again. Sometimes, the people who understand us most are the ones who knew us before we were even born. What would you do if you discovered a hidden connection to someone you'd lost? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to embrace the journey for more powerful stories of identity, belonging, and second chances. See you in our next video.